Well, hello my beautiful book besties. My name is Liv if you're new here, and in this video we're going to be chatting all about the books that I read in the month of February. Last month I had a really great reading month. You can also probably notice that I was very much a mood reader in February. I didn't have a whole lot of life stuff going on, which gave me more time to read, but I also didn't know what the heck I was in the mood for, so you will probably notice that there's quite a wide variety of genres that I'm going to talk about. We definitely had some high highs, and we also had some low lows, but they were mostly highs. I also found two new all-time favorite books that I'm so excited to share with you, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Like I did for January's wrap-up, we're gonna go from least to favorite, starting us with A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall. Now this is my second attempt with Kate Alice Marshall's thrillers. I DNF'd her book that came out last year, I think No One Can Know, and this one I ended up giving 2.5 or 2.25 stars. I can honestly say that this is probably my last time trying a Kate Alice Marshall thriller. The reason why I did not love this book in particular is that nothing was surprising, and I also did not like the subject matter in general. I felt like it definitely teetered more towards the domestic drama than like a psychological thriller, which is definitely more my cup of tea. It's always so hard to talk about thrillers because I don't want to potentially spoil something for you, and I'm just gonna be straight up honest, I don't remember much about this thriller at all. I've kind of put it out of my mind, as I tend to do with books that I don't really love. What I do remember loving about this book though is obviously it's the perfect winter thriller. We have this girl and our fiance that are going to visit his parents, or his side of the family. They own this big log fancy cabin, and I did kind of like that Knives Out kind of isolated feeling. The atmospheres that Kate Alice Marshall creates is absolute perfection. That was my favorite part of the story. I could just feel the cold chill and the snowstorm and all of the great food they were talking about. She just writes such vivid descriptions, which is why I didn't end up DNFing this. I kind of thought about it, but something about her writing just really captivates you. Other than that, the pace was really good. I feel like she left a lot of cliffhangers after each chapter. We had a lot of unlikable characters, and that's another big thing for me that I have a hard time with thrillers. If that I'm not invested in at least one of the characters, I have such a hard time being emotionally connected. I need some type of way to feel sympathetic towards our main character. I definitely did feel that way a little bit towards the end because there is a content warning of child abuse in this book, so if that's not something you want to read, definitely skip this one. But overall, it just disappointed me. It was a great quick like popcorn thriller that you could just fly through in one sitting, but I definitely wouldn't recommend this thriller to people that have been reading thrillers for years. I feel like this was very much a beginner thriller. So I hope none of this deters you from skipping this book completely. It was really well written, but the subject matter and I don't know, there's just something about it that was not that memorable for me. And then we have The Crash by Freida McFadden, which is another crazy winter thriller. In the beginning of this thriller, we have our main character Tegan, who is pregnant, and there's kind of some other drama going on with that and the father, but she ends up wanting to go visit her brother and just kind of get some comfort from staying with him and visiting with him. But along the way, she runs into a winter blizzard. She ends up getting stuck, and then she ends up getting rescued by this couple who is very interesting. We have multiple points of view in this book. We follow the lady that rescues Tegan and Tegan herself. Going into this book, I knew it was supposed to be a little bit like Misery from Stephen King. Even though I have not read that book myself, I do kind of know enough to see the similarities between the two. But if you are a mom of a young child, or if you are pregnant yourself, I would not recommend this. I can see why this book has made so many people angry, and I can also see why people enjoyed this book. I personally rated this 3 stars. It was very much middle of the road where it was wild and crazy, but there was a lot of things that made me feel super uncomfortable. Freida McFadden always knows how to go there and shock you, and this book definitely did that. It got scary, it got gory. There's all sorts of things in this book that I feel like is not going to be for everyone. But is this going to keep me from reading Freida McFadden in the future? Absolutely not. I will always read every single one of her books because because they're so quick and easy to fly through. Is the writing anything genius? Not really. But I feel like her stories and scenarios are vastly different and you never know what you're gonna get from her. I would recommend this book for people that like to know Exit by Taylor Adams. Not my favorite Frida McFadden. She had some predictable moments, which is very typical. I'm usually just along for the ride. It was a great winter thriller. It was something that I binged and I was super in the mood for. So I think I'm gonna settle on a 3-star for this one. And then we have First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, which I did vlog in a recent video where I had ChatGPT choose a number of pages that I read every day, and it was super fun. I had a great time with that vlog, so if you do want to see more in-depth thoughts from this book, I would definitely go check that vlog out. But this one I did end up landing on a 4-star. This is only my second experience with this author, and I kind of wrote her off for the longest time. I read Love Light Farms and really did not like it, but this book did something for me. This book was so incredibly fun. Basically, we have Aiden Valentine, who runs this late night talk show host where people can call in and they can ask for dating advice or romance advice. And one night he gets a call from a 12-year-old girl named Maya who's asking about dating advice for her mother, Lucy. So she ends up giving the phone over to Lucy, and Lucy and Aiden end up talking. They don't necessarily like each other at first, but like everybody said, this is definitely inspired by Sleepless in Seattle. I loved the vibes when the two of them were together. I definitely want to go watch that movie now. I really enjoyed the mixed media, or the kind of like podcast talk show elements in between each chapter. I felt like that really kept the ball rolling with the story. I really would have loved to even see more from Maya, Lucy's daughter. She was so cute. She talked about Lord of the Rings. She was obsessed with Indiana Jones. There was just so many nods to things that I love in this book that made it super fun. But the reason this is 4 stars and not 5 stars is it's just not extremely memorable for me, and that's coming from someone who's a very picky romance reader. So you can definitely take my opinion with a grain of salt. What I do love about this book specifically that I feel like Love Light Farms lacked is the emotional depth to the characters. Both of them were going through something completely different in their life. Aiden, his mother recently got diagnosed with cancer for a 3rd time, so he's mentally working through that and trying to deny it. But him being able to open up about that for the first time ever was such a cool moment to see between the two of them, and that's what I really need in my romance books, is some depth to it, some realistic scenario that's just gonna make me feel sympathetic towards the characters. So apparently this was the month of giving authors second chances because of Kate Alice Marshall and also this book, and I can gladly say that I think I'm going to be reading the second one in this series, as well as exploring more of B.K. Borison's books in the future. The next book I read, I definitely was a little bit disappointed by. I went into this thinking, oh wow, I know I'm going to give this 5 stars like the rest of my friends, and there was just something lacking for me within the first 100 pages of this book, but I was invested halfway through. It just took a little while, which is fine because there is a second book, but that is A Feather So Black by Lyra Celine. I did end up giving this one 4 stars, but I definitely think I'm going to continue on in this series. I just don't know when. It's not like a top priority for me, but this book was very unique and I definitely think it's very underrated. This book is about our main character Fia, who is actually the daughter of a queen whose real daughter actually went missing. Sophia is a changeling where she has essentially taken on the skin of the daughter as kind of like a replacement. Fia and her friend Rogan are essentially kind of sent on this quest to go get the queen's daughter back. Rogan and Fia have this history of having feelings for each other ever since they were young, but Fia has always kind of pushed aside her feelings for Rogan because she is not the true betrothed to Rogan. Fia ends up finding another guy that she may or may not be interested in, but overall this book was full of folklore and Swan Lake vibes, and it was dark and kind of cottagecore and creepy at the same time. So if any of those words are buzzwords for you, I would definitely check out this book. Another big thing that I realized after reading this book is that I don't think I'm a love triangle person. Unless it's done really well, like The Hunger Games or something, I just don't think that love triangles are for me, and I just didn't particularly love that about this book. But overall, the atmosphere and the vibes and how dark she went was so incredible. So that's all I'm gonna say about this book. It's very underrated. I don't know why more people aren't talking about this romantasy, but I'm finally glad that I picked this up for myself to figure out why my friends were raving about it so much. It was full of lush atmospheric descriptions. I really fell in love with the writing, but if you've never heard of this, I hope it encourages you to pick it up and try it out for yourself. Next, we have the beginning of a series that I've been putting off for so long because I know I'm gonna love this series. You know what what I mean? Where it's like you are just waiting for the perfect time to finally pick this up. And in order to motivate myself to finally pick it up, I've been doing a Patreon read along with my patrons, and it's been so much fun. So in February, we started our read of the series and Ember in the Ashes. Holy cow, this book was 5 stars easily. I have not read something this action-packed in quite some time. Don't get me wrong, I love a little bit of romantasy here and there, but I'm telling you, this just made me miss like those high-stakes adventure-packed YA books I used to read in high school and middle school, and this just reignited my love for reading. There's definitely a good reason why this is so popular. If you don't know anything about this series, which I don't know why you wouldn't, it's been around for ages. This is about a girl named Laia whose parents end up being killed by the Marshall Empire. Side note, this whole book and series is very brutal, which I kind of love and hate about it. But at the very beginning, we have Laia whose parents are killed, and the reason for that is they've been trying to hound down her brother because he has some type of underlying secret or knowledge. So they end up capturing him and taking him away. So this whole story follows Laia, who goes to Blackcliff Academy, who's looking for her brother. She ends up going undercover as kind of like a slave. In comes Elias, who's our second point of view, who is the soldier of this commandant, who is like this brutal lady that oversees the whole academy. I had no idea there was trials and competitions in this book either, which made me so excited because you guys know I'm a Hunger Games girly, and this book just was so incredible. The writing was phenomenal. I cannot believe that this was written 9 or 10 years ago because it still holds up to this day. So if you haven't read this series, here is your push to do so, and if you are struggling the first 100 pages, I'm telling you, keep pushing through because it is non-stop plot twists and brutality. I've already picked up the second book and it picks up right where this first one left off, and I can already tell it's going to be even higher stakes than the first one. Another thing I didn't realize was going to be in this book is we have a lot of creepy paranormal things. I have not read a book that's kind of set in ancient Rome or kind of gives you that gladiator feel. This just felt so new and refreshing to me. Absolutely loved it, and this was probably my favorite read of the month. Next, this book definitely gave Ember in the Ashes a run for its money because it is a completely different genre, but we read this for my book club and I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. That is The Favorites by Lane Fargo. There's a very good reason why everybody's giving this 5 stars. Everybody's talking about it. I have seen some negative reviews come out of the woodworks, and let me just say I can see why people would give this 1 star and I can see why they would give it 5. But the biggest thing that sold me about this is I was hearing it was like Taylor Jenkins Reid but kind of on steroids, and that right there sold me because if I'm going to read any type of contemporary or drama suspense or drama thriller, it is going to be a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. It was definitely a last minute choice to have up for voting for my book club, but it was one of the best discussions I think we've ever had. So in case you doubted my love for this book, hopefully these tabs will give you proof that I ate this book up. This book is about Katarina Shaw and Heath Rocha and their whole journey to being Olympic ice dancers. I definitely don't want to say too much more than that, but know there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of toxic behavior, you're gonna hate a lot of people, there's a lot of scandal, but that's what made it so interesting. The way this was written was phenomenal, and I have read Lane Fargo's other thriller and I didn't like it. So again, here we are giving another author a second chance. I could sit here and pull so many quotes and so many moments and so many things that I loved about this book, but I feel like it's one that you kind of have to go into blind like I did. Just know there's going to be a lot of heartbreak, there's going to be a lot of emotion. I will say this kind of reads more of like a 4.5 for me, mainly because I didn't love the way it ended. There's a big trope in books that I personally don't love, but what I didn't realize a lot of people didn't know is there's an ice skater or a figure skater named Johnny Weir who I watched growing up who actually narrates part of this book. In between each chapter there is like an interview with a bunch of different people, so it's a full cast of narrators and Johnny Weir is one of them, and let me just say he brought the spice and the drama to this book. So if you were going to read this book at all, you have to get a hold of the audio. That's going to enhance your experience so much with this story, and I think that's why I fell in love with it. I mean, I grew up ice skating, I grew up watching the Olympics, I still love ice skating. I don't know a ton about it, but I don't feel like you do have to know a ton about it to go into this because Lane Fargo definitely did her research. This was totally unexpected. This was not on my radar whatsoever. Didn't really like what I've read from this author before, but wow, I am so glad I gave her a second chance. And last but but definitely not least, books 7 and 8 are kind of in their own genre, so I'm not really rating them or putting them up against any of these other books that I just talked about, but I have had a big urge to dive back into some manga. So one weekend I ended up picking back up Witch Hat Atelier number 10 and also number 11, and then I also didn't realize that there are 2 more volumes out now, so I went and I ended up ordering those other 2, which I hope to read very, very soon. I am so obsessed with Witch Hat Atelier. If you are new to manga, this is definitely the place to start. I think it is for ages, yes, ages 10 and up, but if you've never seen this before and you're like, what the heck is this series that you're talking about? This is about a girl named Coco who accidentally puts a spell on her mother, so she realizes she has some type of magical capability. She doesn't know what to do with it, so she ends up going to this academy with a bunch of other little witches, but she's also on the search to know what in the world happened to her mother. Where did she go? What happened? And so that's the reason for her trying to uncover and figure out her magical abilities. It is so much fun. It's so entertaining. Not only that, but the art style is so detailed. I've never seen a detailed manga like this before. This currently still stands as my all-time favorite manga series. I haven't read a lot in the last year or two, but this series feels like coming home, and I can definitely tell it's going to make me want to dive into more manga. Also, apparently supposed to be getting a show. I don't know when that's happening, but if it's actually going to be made into a show, this is going to be the most beautiful, like Studio Ghibli-ish looking show. So if you love academia, you love witches, you love trials, you love emotion, there is so much going for this series. I could sit here and talk about it all day long, and I can't believe that I've waited this long to dive back in. Like I said, this is a huge comfort series or comfort read for me, and I'm just so excited to keep going with it. I want to say there's supposed to be 15 or 20 in this series, but I could be wrong. So overall, I read 8 total books, and I feel like the average rating was so good for the month of February. I think it's going to be really hard to beat, but we had quite the variety. We had lots of 4 and 5 stars, a lot of authors that I have read from before, but I'm so glad that I gave a second chance to. Ember in the Ashes, I mean, finding a new favorite series is huge for me. Before you leave, definitely let me know what your favorite February read was. Did you also read the favorites and love it? But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I love you so much, and I will see you in my next one.